G'day everybody, how's it going out there? Just as a quick reminder, Ursa Majors are now open for nominations. So just Google Ursa Major Awards and you can set up your own nominations. Normally I'd go a little bit more into the things that I felt this year, particularly about animation, because that seems to be the yearly thing I'm doing now is the short dramatic works. Because it fits within my schedule to do analysis of shorter works, and it's also the most interesting, I think. Like, I get a bunch of variety and it's cool. But unfortunately, we're not talking about that this week. I think a lot of you know what we are going to be talking about this week, based on the Google Analytics that we have received so far. See, last week I covered a law about adult entertainment in North Carolina on the internet, and how a new law had been implemented that basically caused E621, a furry website that's known for its adult content, to basically shutter itself from the state for the while. That video did not get the most amount of views in the past few weeks. Another video that I made about a law in Oklahoma did. Because unfortunately for myself, I'm not a person who can predict the future. As much as I know about the present and the past, which makes it easier to predict the future, I still cannot fully predict it. And unfortunately for us today, Oklahoma's at it again. Only this time, their law is even worse. So the irony is like last week I told, when I was talking about the law in North Carolina, I said, this law is bad, it's badly written, it has some quirks that it needs to work out, but it's not as bad as the Oklahoma bill, from the year prior. But then Oklahoma had to one-up itself, apparently, because a representative by a name of Humphrey decided to implement another law that has garnered a lot more attention. In fact, he's proposed several laws, and right now the laws are in the proposed status. The people in the House and in the Representatives House of Oklahoma have to still vote on it. So this is what they call the preliminary stage of voting. It's the bill. The bill has been created, and they haven't voted on it yet. And Humphrey's in the news a bit because these laws that he's been producing have some problematic ideals or behaviors highlighted within them. So this is basically the full of the law that has to do with furries, which is the context of this. He made another one about gangs, which I won't go too much into detail with, but because that's out of the purview of this channel. But here is the law that was to be enacted. So forgive the accent here. You'll know why I'm putting it on for a moment. A new section of the law to be codified in the Oklahoma statutes as Section 11-301 of Title 70, unless there is created a duplication in numbering, reads as follows. Students who purport to be imaginary animal or animal species, or who engage in anthropomorphic behavior, commonly referred to as furries, at school, shall not be allowed to participate in school curriculum or activities. The parent or guardian of a student in violation of this section shall pick up the student from the school, or animal control services shall be contacted to remove the student. And then that's basically it. The only line after that is, we'll enact this in November of 2024, if approved. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A year ago, once again, and by the way, the law from Oklahoma a year ago also misused the concept of anthropomorphic behavior. As we discussed in that video and in that article a year ago, anthropomorphic behavior means behaving in a human-like fashion, right? There's a field of studies called anthropology, but apparently studying anthropology is no longer allowed in Oklahoma schools if a bill like this passed, because, you're committing anthropomorphic behavior. Call animal services, they're studying anthropology, okay? So the interesting thing about that is I would believe that the word that they're looking for is zoomorphic behavior. The behavior of a human acting as an animal, right? A dehumanization, as it were. But we'll get a little bit more than that in a moment. So this law basically is probably, and the odds are very against it for passing, but it has been very much sensationalized in the news because it even exists in the first place, or that the person in question even felt like they needed to write it in the first place. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring out a video of this person defending his own laws, because Humphrey, the representative, decided to lay out a series of videos defending his laws and things like that. So here we have Humphrey. What do you say about your own law, sir? And now you'll know why I made that voice earlier.
People are going to call me insane for running this bill. Hell, I'd say they're insane. If you got an animal coming to school, how about we get them vaccinated? How about we get them neutered? And how about we send them to the pound? I don't want to see some kid going to the bathroom in a, in a litter box, in a kitty litter. Those people up there have lost their mind letting these people pretend to be animals in the classroom. If they're going to be animals, let's send them to the pound. Let's send them home. We're not, how do you teach a cat math? People
I teach cat math. That's basically it. So it loops back around. I'll also notice here that this was done on an iPhone, if you could see that in the corner there. And also, what's with the piano in the back? Did you already steal Piano Cat? Did you already find a Piano Cat in school and already send him to the pound and just confiscated the piano? I don't know what that piano is doing back there. That was something that drew my attention. And he's got an iPhone, which, back in my day, an iPhone was considered a yuppie phone. I don't know why it's all common now. Like, we have people when the salt of the earth, counties apparently now have iPhones. It's freaking weird, man. Those things are expensive, man. God. How? But here's the thing. I'm making jokes, right? I'm making jokes here. And that's fine because I'm just a citizen on YouTube, right? And this is sort of a bleed into the next situation, which is because these things have blown up. And ironically, he kind of predicted, right? He knew what he was doing. He knew this was going to blow up. He knew people were going to call him insane. Why else defend things like that? But if you didn't capture something in that video that was kind of really disturbing, was that he was letting forth a very, very disturbing thought, right? Why don't we get them neutered, right? Why don't, if a kid is enjoying is discussing anthropomorphism of animal characters, why don't we neuter that kid, right? So it's absolutely absurd, right? It's like, how? Why would you even promote that or think about that? Why would you want the government harming a child like that, right? And on top of that, he's a legislator. It's not really his job to enact discipline upon things. He could propose it like he is, but it sounds like he has a loss of faith in the people and the institutions that he's overseeing, right? To the point where he is trying to push forward laws that enact cruel and unusual punishments upon his constituency. And that's kind of concerning. It's a very concerning thing to see. So, and it's like, well, he's making jokes and all that stuff. And that is something, interesting that one of their local Tulsa anchors said, right? For, I think it was News 2. Basically, Aaron Christie here noted that after all this news started to come out, that the representative in question, Justin Humphrey, was already beginning to backpedal on the language in the two bills that he had filed, the one for the furries and the one for Hispanic gangs. Then those were his words, by the way. One bars students from pretending to be animals, furries, from school, requires them to be picked up by a parent or animal control. He said that the animal control part was sarcasm. Humphrey. You're old enough to know what Pink Floyd is, right? I don't know if you probably are more of a country man, but, what have we told you all about dark sarcasm in the classroom? Certainly not there. Certainly not in the legislature. Now, here's the thing I talked about earlier. We'll come back to this in a little bit. to talk about the rest of what Aaron said there. But when it comes to these things where a person is saying that they were just joking, right? When they were saying, "Oh, it's just a joke, bro, just a joke," like there's a term for this, right? And plug your ears a little bit. But this language is going to get a little bit spicy. But the whole thing is that there's a concept in quantum physics called Schrodinger's cat. It's a thought experiment, basically, where there is a cat in the box, and there's some sort of poison that will be released into the air if the radiation detector goes over a certain amount. And that amount that goes over, humans will never be able to detect themselves whether or not it's going to activate. Therefore, to a human, knowing that there are two outcomes, that the poison is released and kills the cat in the box, or that the cat remains alive. This is called Schrodinger's cat. It's a very well-known thought experiment, right? And it was made during a time when nuclear, things were a big thing. So, killing a cat with poison is just, par for the course for scientists of the day. They've already killed thousands of humans using atom fission. So whatever, I guess. But the long and the short is, you don't know whether or not the cat is alive or dead in the box until you open the box. So the idea of quantum theory and the idea of, the idea of the universe and thinking about the universe in a way, you have to proclaim that the cat is both alive and dead at the same time until you know which one is true, right? So in that moment when you don't have the box open, both possibilities exist, right? But as soon as you open the box and as soon as you observe that thing, that you can see that the cat is that way, right? The cat is either alive or dead, depending on which way the detection went. Likewise, the concept, so I explained all that to explain the concept of, and here we go, Schrodinger's douchebag. So the concept of Schrodinger's douchebag is that a person who wants something or an outcome in society that is partaked to their biases or beliefs, right? They want to push society in a certain direction, will lay out an idea about like what they feel about other people, whether it's religion, race, or color, creed, those things. They'll let out an idea that's so bombastic and so crazy, but it falls within their ideals, right? Maybe. But then when people react, if people react positively or laugh, they'll go like, if people react positively, then they'll double down and they'll go, yeah, I found somebody who I can, bring in on my plan, right? But if the audience either A, laughs, or B, like distances themselves from that individual, then the person will go, oh, don't worry, it's just a joke, right? So basically it's sort of a cover, right, for bombastic ideas. And so this concept of the Schrodinger's douchebag has come into play in the internet, and that's sort of the explanation onto where that comes from. The reason I bring this up is because, like, when it comes down to it, if you're some guy on the street and you're talking about random stuff like that, and making jokes about stuff like that doesn't really pertain to you, or making jokes like that about like, yeah, them furries, yeah, we should hunt, like by the way, like you see it in the comment section all the time, right? You see as a furry person, as a furry content creator, you see it in your comment sections all the time, like the furry hate kind of stuff, like, oh, if you believe you're an animal, we should be legally allowed to hunt you, or oh, it's furry season, that kind of thing. That happened to one of my videos of gamers versus furries, ironically. So the idea is that when we're talking about this situation, we have this format where we're discussing these things, and if you could tell by the format under which a person resides, right? If they are a person who is doing that to be a douchebag, or if they're doing it to just because trying to be a comedian, right? So the interesting thing about it is that you could kind of use the environment under which a statement is made in order to kind of discern whether a person really believes something or whether or not they are just joking. So the important thing to remember is that as a legislature, if you're writing or trying to codify something into law, then that is not really the place or the time for it, right? That's not the time or the place for jokes. Because you're literally seriously saying, this is the law of the land that God has given us. We're going to make this a law, right? It's a big responsibility. Moses didn't come down from on high on the mountain and go, oh, honor thy mother and thy father. Do not murder your neighbor. Do not, don't covet your neighbor's possessions. Don't bear false witness against your neighbor. Don't hold other gods before me. Oh yeah, and let's make sure all those furries go to the pound. Am I right? It's like, okay, silly joke, but like that just kind of undoes like all the seriousness of the law for the other parts of the law that you're presenting, right? So when you make jokes in the legislature like this, it's not good for your position as a legislature, and it's not good for your colleagues either, because now they feel like their job is a joke, right? Now they're gonna have to spend time saying no to this, but like at the same time, it's like they're trying to put through serious bills to address serious problems, and here you are spending your nights and weekends worrying about what furries are doing, or what furries are, or that you want to, enact some sort of weird vengeance on furries via neutering kids, apparently, which is freaking weird. So let's head back one last time to this anchor's statements here. This is where we're going to go into the other bill that he kind of let out. And I'm not reading that one in the full, but you could probably find it if you Googled it really good. You can have Humphrey 2024 things. That's another sad thing, is I'm going to have to put the year of this video on the title card, because apparently this is going to be a yearly thing for Oklahoma, where we're going over a legislation that they passed. So anyways, here we have Eric going, another bill would label known gang members convicted of gang-related offense as terrorists if they are of Hispanic descent. He said he was wrong to word it that way and wants to change it to undocumented or here illegally. I also spoke to a representative, and so the third tweet here talks about another representative who is like, these laws are silly, they're stupid. As I said, a colleague who feels sort of embarrassed by the fact that these laws came up. So it sounds like the law that he made against gang people and considering them terrorists only were made that way if they were considered Hispanic people, instead of saying undocumented things, which apparently he wanted to change it to. But let's put all the nuances aside, or the backpedaling aside, that Humphrey is doing here. What we have here is a foundational issue, and it's one that's important to discuss. Because as I said earlier, I think the government is confusing the concept and ideas of zoomorphism with the concept and ideas of anthropomorphization. Anthropomorphization is adding human characteristics to animals. My character is a kangaroo character, right? But they have a cognitive ability. They have the ability for speech and interpretation and communication. And they can speak and communicate on a human level to other humans. There is this concept of zoomorphification. And zoomorphification I've never really been fond of, but there is elements of that in furry fandom at times, right? The concept of pup play and, puphoods and things like that kind of fall within that realm. And sure, zoomorphic behavior, but here's the thing, the sad part is that zoomorphic behaviors would fit really well into that bill, or any bill talking about that. Like if a student is disrupting by behaving in a zoomorphic manner, right? When they're talking about people using cat pans, that's a zoomorphic behavior. That's not an anthropomorphic behavior. An anthropomorphic behavior would be a cat using a regular toilet. That's an anthropomorphic behavior. And the reason, the saddest of ironies here about government being concerned about anthropomorphization is its tendency as a government to fetishize the zoomorphification of others. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you take the two bills that Humphrey has tried to propose in tandem, he has one where he is trying to stop kids from zoomorphizing themselves but calling it anthropomorphic. And on the other law, he's basically saying, well, if a person's Hispanic and they commit a crime like this, then they should be called a terrorist, right? But seemingly only if they're quote unquote Hispanic. But no, I meant illegal immigrants. I'm sorry, I should have worded that better. I should have, whether if they're here illegally and they commit that, then they're a terrorist. Like, that's the thing, though, right? You kind of let your feelings or your construations already flown, right? That freak flag that you fly is already flown about your racial tendencies, right? Here is the thing that I learned in school, and it was a good book. It's called Animal Farm, and one of the biggest warnings in the book of Animal Farm was the concept of zoomorphification. The concept of all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, right? And this is what I'm seeing in representatives like Humphrey. I'm seeing the zoomorphification of other individuals. He's blaming, and because, by the way, one of the big things he's pushing, the reason he's pushing that bill about the Hispanics and the gang activities is because of the concept of drugs and how much damage they do to society, ignoring that most of the drug issues that have occurred in the United States over the past decade have been from pharmaceutical giants' families, right? Purdue and things like that. Like the concept of the opioid epidemic. That was caused by white folk. Shouldn't they be charged with gang-related activities? Or now you're saying terrorism? If we're going to stretch these things, if we're going to stretch enforcement, we need to stretch it the whole way. And this is the whole thing. Like, these like, oh, well, I'm going to tell you how to enforce things. Like, here's the thing. It's like, but we need the furry law because like kids are being disruptive because they're being disruptive. The rules already exist about kids who are disruptive in class. Teachers and principals and superintendents already have that covered. But maybe, I don't know, maybe the representative felt that he's not using his time, or like he's just sitting there like going, I need to write something. Even though laws already exist that make this illegal thing illegal, I just want to make it more extreme. I want to make the government enforcement more extreme, right? The problem with government enforcement becoming more and more and more extreme is that eventually that extremeness will be turned around to you. Eventually. It's always happened in the history of anything, in the history of all governments, right? A government that enforces a hand that is too heavy will have a heavy hand raised against it back. It always happens, right? So you always have to be careful about zoomorphizing others. And especially people who zoomorphize when they're in the power of government. It's not the kids with the imaginations in the school I'm worried about. It's the adults with the overactive imaginations and those who want to zoomorphize others other than themselves. But anyways, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you have, there should be some links in the description below on other related things. The video about the previous law that was written by Oklahoma that was a little bit more, it was a little bit more legislative related, I'll admit. Like the previous, like compared to this one, the previous Oklahoma bill like looks like a cakewalk. It's like literally like, if we find out the kids are behaving like cats in school, we're gonna withdraw funding. Like that's something that a legislature can do, and it's actually a lot more nuanced than this threat of basically putting kids in a pound because like they're just behaving like a cat. Apparently, I don't know, but we'll be back to our regularly scheduled thing next week, and hopefully it'll be better things. So kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. If you want to make silly jokes like Humphrey in the comment section, I guess feel free. You're not a legislature, but like, come on now. I mean, that's the appropriate forum for stupid stuff, right? Right down there. The legislature's not the place for that. Have a good one, guys. We'll see you next time.